I didn't include the first 29 verses, sort of review what we've already had. But in the end, his army will take over the temple fortress, pollute the sanctuary, and that's not the Antichrist yet, but put a stop to daily sacrifices and set up sacrilegious object that causes desecration. Okay? We're going to talk about that. He will flatter and win over those who have violated the covenant. But the people who know their God will be strong and will resist him. And that's what we're doing now, folks. We have to resist a lot of things to be a Christian in this country. Wise leaders will give instruction to many, but these teachers will die by fire and sword. So persecution's coming to the church and to its leaders, or they will be jailed and robbed. Why would it be any different than Jesus being beaten, and the disciples all being persecuted, and all but one martyr, John, was not martyred? But there's always a remnant. Always a remnant to his people and to Christian people. And some of the wise will fall victim to persecution. In this way they will be refined and cleansed and made pure until the time of the end. Until the time of the end. Okay, you got that? Time of the end is the last week. For the appointed time is still to come. Okay? The king, this king will rule. And he'll do as he pleases, exalting himself, claiming to be greater than every god, even blaspheming the God of gods. How many people in pulpits, how many people proclaiming to be religious are blaspheming the God, our God? Blasphemy. Not the blasphemy that Christ was accused of, because he was God. He will succeed, but only, you think, well, what's happening? Is God going to intervene? He will intervene. Do you really think that anything is happening now that isn't allowed by God? Do you think there's anything happening now that God didn't know about? When these people prophesied in the Old Testament, they were telling about things that would come because God knew it, and he gave them the information to share with us. Okay? He will succeed, but only until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined will surely take place. Look, it's all part of God's plan. As bad as it is, God's in control. This man will have no respect for the gods of ancestors or for the God loved by women. And I was puzzled by that. And here, something means that the desire of women means the God that is loved and adored by women. Or the irreligion that he was irreligious to women. He was irreligious to beauty and goodness. And he had no regard for any god of man, any god of women. But it is probable that he was talking about the moon, the queen of heaven, as they used to call her. Or some other human heavenly luminary. Syrian women are described in scriptures as particularly attached to these kind of women, or were gods who were idols. Okay? And also some thought that it's just total disregard to the respect of women. Okay? One guy said not regard, and he said the weeping or tears of women, that is, he would be so cruel that he would disregard everybody. And I was just curious, I don't know if that helped you any, what it is. It really probably doesn't matter a lot, but at least it was there, and I thought, well, I could skip over it. But he's not going to respect any god of women, god of men, or any other god, for he will boast that he is greater than them all. Who's that sound like, folks? Who does that sound like? Sounds like Satan, doesn't it? If I can't have my own way, and you're not going to let me rule, and you're not going to let me be the the big cheese up here in heaven, I'll just rebel. And he rebelled and God kicked him out. And he sent him down here. All part of God's plan. We got him, folks. But he doesn't have us. Okay? He doesn't have us. But he wants to destroy every one of your lives in here. He'll do whatever he can to disrupt Christian churches. And you know the biggest disruption that I feel that I've seen in Christian churches is over small, insignificant issues. Mode of baptism. If you want to have immersion, you're not having it in our church. We sprinkle. I heard that. We sprinkle. And I'm sitting there thinking, baptism is simply an outward sign of an inward change. You know, I don't get it, folks. And where are you sitting? We have done a good job of Satan. And how about relationships? How many of you don't have to raise your hand. How many of you have lived long enough to know that relationship problems are the biggest tool of the devil? Relationships can ruin a family, can ruin a life. All because someone has a greedy thinking thought. I don't know. The biggest problem, Nancy and I started relations, we struggle. We pray, we almost cry sometimes. You ever try to figure out a relationship problem? And you wonder where it started and how it got to where it's at? How do we change it? Sometimes we can't. Sometimes you just got to dust. Remember when Paul just dusted, Christ just dusted his sandals and left? And do you remember what he said? Sometimes you're least accepted and least believed in your own community. I wonder how many people, and I say this very hard, I wonder how many people up in heaven are looking down when I have Peg Snell's help with her funeral and saying, how in the world did he ever get in the pulpit? How in the world did he end up there? Well, they knew me when I was not pulpit material, okay? But isn't it amazing how God takes someone and works in their lives? Huh? It's amazing. I can only imagine. In claiming the foreign god's help, he will attack the strongest fortress. I wonder if that foreign god is the god of China, the god of Russia. I wonder if this is related to people and alliances. There are going to be alliances, you know, at the end. He will honor those who submit to him, appointing them to positions of authority and dividing the land among them as their reward. We're getting pretty close to that today in our government. You know that, folks. We give people that vote for us all kinds of stuff. And we work that stuff into other stuff, into bills and stuff, and then you pass a bill that's seemingly wonderful and good, but it's not good because it's going to promote things you don't even know about. Anything that promotes abortion is godly wrong. Because every one of you sitting here today are here because you weren't aborted. And there's no way in the world that anyone, I mean, maybe, now see, I'm not, maybe in an instance where the mother's life or I don't know. There are times when, but medical reasons, okay? Other than that, just because they're inconvenient, just because you don't want them. But the flip side of that is bringing kids into the world and then not being there for them. Or the church community that's so righteous, telling people, do not abort, and you're 14 years old, you're living in the slums, you have no help, you have nobody to be there for you. How are you going to raise the child? You can't raise yourself. And you know what? If you don't want that child to have an abortion, then the Christian community needs to show up and support her and help her and walk through her pregnancy and give that baby a chance. and give that girl a chance. And while you're walking with that girl, maybe you can introduce her to Jesus Christ. Not by necessarily a Bible verse, but just an act of kindness. I think acts of kindness are tremendous witnessing tools. Then at the time of the end, again, here's that phrase, the king of the south will attack the king of the north. The king of the north will storm out with chariots, charioteers, and vast navy. He will invade various lands and sweep through them like a flood. He will enter the glorious land of Israel, and many nations will fall. But, this is interesting, Moab, Edom, and the best part of Ammon, which is Judah, will escape. You know why? Because it will be a safe place, and there will be a remnant for Israel. Okay? And in the process, he's going to conquer many countries, and even Egypt will not escape. But then, news from the east and the north, and this will usher in the real battle, will alarm him, and he will set out in great anger to destroy and obliterate many. He will stop between the glorious holy mountain, Moriah, by Jerusalem, and see, pitch his royal tent, but while he is there, his time will suddenly run out and no one will help him. He's going to pitch his tent and his rule will end. The last 3.5 years of the 7 years. At that time, 12:1, we'll get into that eventually. At that time, Michael, the archangel, who stands guard over your nation, will rise. Then there will be a time of anguish greater than any since nations first came into existence. That's the tribulation period. Okay? But at that time, every one of your names, or people whose name is written in the book of life, will be rescued. I guess I could stop there and ask you, is your name written in the Lamb's book of life? And all of this history stuff doesn't matter, but it does matter. In a sense, because it tells us why it's going to happen and why we should be telling others about it. This should alert us to tell others about what's going to happen. Now here, what in Daniel, he will act in self-will. His name's A-N-T, where is he here? I'll get him. Well, it doesn't matter. I can't spell his name. Oh, Antisus or something like that. I had it, but I don't know where it's at. I got these pages. Okay. But he's the first ruler, and he's going to have a lot of power. And it's all going to be about him. I'm more powerful than God. I don't have to pay attention to God. Isn't that sort of what our nation is now? Yeah. And this ruler, and he's not the final ruler, he will exalt himself. I'm spelling self. I looked at my dictionary and it had 2 H's. He will magnify himself above every god. Okay, isn't that what we just heard? He will blaspheme the true God. He will succeed for a limited time. He will be a very irreligious person. Man, he will be. But we have that already. He will place confidence in military might. You're going to have to come back next week to get the slam on that one. That is really interesting. You know, when military might, when Daniel was prophesying, he was talking about the area that he lived in. Egypt. And Egypt was powerful. That's why it was mentioned. But we have a big world now. The gospel went through. Paul took the gospel to all kinds of places in Europe, but still not a real big area, because that's where it was. And then from there it has spread out. But today we got Russia, we got China, we got countries in the Middle East. It's easy to figure out that there could be an amazing alliance come against God. They weren't specifically mentioned, but it says the people of the north, the people of the south. Well, in that one verse it said the north battled the south. Well, guess what? The south's going to be eliminated, and the north and the east, someone's going to come together to conquer the first guy that thought he had it all together. And then these people are going to battle God at the final battle. Okay? From the north and from the east. Nobody knows for sure what that is, but you know it's North, Russia, China. So it's going to be interesting. And military might. You had swords. You had spears. You had things that threw rocks. You had something to put over your head to keep from getting hurt. Now what do we have now? We have weapons of mass destruction, don't we? We have rockets, we have planes, we have, So if someone has all that power in his control, could he be the Antichrist? Could he destroy it all and boom? Could he? Yeah. But you know what? Guess what? Guess what? If your name's written in the book of life and the bomb hits your house, you're going, you understand? You're going up. Bomb's going to leave a hole here. You're going up looking, boy, my house is gone. Well, what I want to make sure, when my house is gone, I want to make sure my family's going with me. I got a family in Mississippi. I want Mississippi and Pennsylvania to come together in heaven. That's what I want. And as bad as this is going to be, if you are a pre-trib person, you are going to be looking down at it all. You understand? But some will go through it and get saved. But boy, you don't want to be in that group. We have a mid-trib group that think we're going through so much and then we'll suffer for 3.5 of those years and then we'll be raptured up. They will be. Then we have the post-trib. Those people, post-tribulation people, believe we'll go through the whole 1,000 years of tribulation and all of that, and then they believe we're in it now. Now that's all right, but I'm a pre-trib person because I want rapture. I'm going to believe God it's going to be worse than anything I've ever experienced. And if it's that bad, I don't want to experience it. I'd rather be looking down and watching Him reclaim what man has taken from Him. Man and all his weapons and all his power. How many of you heard lightning and thunder? Huh? I heard thunder that almost rattled the house. What if God put 4 thunders together? Huh? What if God put 5 lightnings together? I saw what a little water could do. Did anybody see what the water does in floods? God has power. I don't know why people get flooded. I don't know why. How many of you in the last year have said, what is going on here? Every week and every month and every day, there's a natural global warming. You think God might be trying to tell us something? You think global warming's hot? Try the other pot. You don't want that hot. That's really hot. You do not want to go to hell. That's the ultimate destruction place. Okay? Spend your life in hell. Can you imagine spending your life in that place? Now, Nancy and I don't always agree on that one, so I won't get into that. That's a theological difference we have. Okay? Some people think that you go down and you burn and it's done. Some think you spend your whole life there. I don't. Listen, folks, let me tell you this. You just don't want to go there. There's a better place. Do you know that God talks about hell more than He talks about heaven? Do you know in some churches, that word is, preacher choked to death before he'd say it. Why? If there were no hell, there'd be no heaven. You're going to have comparisons here, folks. Okay, so He will place, all right, 8 His military will be victorious, then challenged, and guess what? Eventually be destroyed. They think they're winning, but they're not. And he will establish his headquarters in Jerusalem, and his rule will end. And you know, in the valley of Megiddo is where the big battle will take place, according to most of the material that I've just scratched the surface, folks. I feel so inadequate in this. You're going to get this next week, so if you want to sort of read Daniel 11 this week and go through it for yourself, feel free to do so, okay?